You can go ahead and get started.
Okay, we still have 1 minute, but I think we have everybody we're expecting. So I'm going to go ahead and call to order this March 28th meeting of the Project and Services Committee for LAVTA. May we call the roll, please?
Yes. Vice Chair Bonanno.
Here.
Pleasanton alternate Narum.
Here.
Chair Josie.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. The next item of business is meeting is open to the public. Members of the audience may address the committee on any matter that is within our general subject matter jurisdiction, and they have 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment?
Currently, there are no attendees in this meeting, and I did not receive any public comment via email today.
Okay, and we did start just a little bit early, so if we do have anybody that joins, I will give them an opportunity to speak if we see any hands go up. And with that, we will move on to minutes from our February 28th meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Move approval.
I guess I will second that myself since Kathy wasn't in that meeting.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice Chair Bonanno.
Aye.
Pleasanton alternate Narum.
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you.
passes.
And we will move to item number 5, which is a zero emission bus rollout plan.
Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well on this gloomy Monday.
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Sure.
Because it looks like David Halbert just joined the meeting.
Oh,
So-
fabulous.
Bear with me for just a second. I'm promoting him.
Welcome, David. We started without you. We have passed the minutes and we are on to item number 5, the zero emission bus rollout plan. And Tone was just about to give us a staff report.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. So thank you. So this has been 2 years in the making. So we are beyond thrilled to finally present you with the CARB ICT rollout plan. But before I pass it over to Savannah, I would, on behalf of LAVTA, we would like to express our appreciation to the CT team. Savannah, Nikki, and Steve have been extremely flexible and accommodating throughout the entire process. They're so dedicated to the project that they even stay up past their bedtime to present at a city council meeting one night. So like us, I'm hoping that you're pleased with the final work products. With that, Savannah, please take it away.
It's good to be back and nice to see all of you all. So I've got another slide deck, yet another one for you, but it's a bit shorter and I think we'll be quick to have resolution on this exciting kind of end of this section of your zero emission journey. So bear with me while I get my screen up. All right. So as Tone mentioned, the goal of today's meeting is to go over the LAVTA ICT rollout plan contents, really high level, and then ultimately get to the point where we approve it for submittal to CARB to ensure that LAVTA is compliant with that innovative clean transit regulation. So we're just going to cover 3 major things today. Just a review of the selection process. I know we've been through a few meetings together, so I'm going to cover that a little bit. Then high level of the fuel cell bus summary, which will be a piece of the ICT rollout content, as well as some other items that were not in the master plan, but are present in the ICT rollout plan. So without further ado, I'll remind you where we've been. So there's 2 major deliverables from this work. And so that's the transition master plan, which is where we make a detailed comprehensive plan with all the methodology, everything that we've been discussing to date with all of the scenarios, all the costing, the energy cycles, all the data that went into making a really informed decision. That's in the transition master plan. It's a summation of our 6 key methodology assessments. And we recommend that you revisit and update every 2 to 5 years. Now, from that, we have the ICT rollout plan, which is a selection of one scenario informed by all the contents of that plan. That is just, like I said, just a single zero emission technology pathway. This plan is public. It is very high level, has none of the assumptions and methodologies or rather only the need to know assumptions and methodologies. It's a summary of the master plan analyses. It's quite a shorter document, so that's great news. And then it does describe disadvantaged community service, workforce training, and funding. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. You only have to submit this once to comply with CARB regulation, but you do have fleet updates every year. You are allowed to change it and update it, but you're only required to submit once. So just a reminder, we've covered a lot of ground here. The battery electric fleet depot and on-route charging scenario was considered. There were a few operational negatives here, and costs for acquisition of land for on-route charging, as well as permitting and issues that generally helped us to come to the conclusion that this may not be the best fit. Then the mixed fleet scenario, we covered 2 technologies for redundancy and resilience benefits. It can be operationally challenging to have 2 subfleets. And then you would also have 2 different fueling infrastructures. So we covered that one in depth. And the third, the fuel cell only fleet, a lot of positives here, operationally similar to the CNG or diesel hybrid or many just traditional fueling systems. And then we do anticipate a price reduction, which is a key to making this one feasible. And there's potential to leverage the infrastructure here. That's the major win, is building infrastructure once for the lifetime of your transition. So then we got into LAVTA staff recommendations. Tone covered these in our last meetings, but just a few other reasons why this is a suitable selection. So a lot of flexibility in using these vehicles because they demonstrate higher range, greater energy on board than a battery electric bus. Again, that fuel price, we do expect this market to boom, pun not intended, and really excel in having just more opportunity for cost changing and players in the market very soon. And then opportunities to leverage economy of scale. So other hydrogen projects in the area, a big benefit with cooperative efforts there. Resilience, just having in a grid down situation, a background energy supply that's not reliant on the grid, and less infrastructure requirements, not having to install charging every year. So there's also some availability data that Tone went into, I won't cover now. But just the fuel cell buses, according to the AC Transit ZETBTA report, they are performing with higher availability than their current battery electric fleet. So with that, we moved forward with the fuel cell electric bus fleet scenario transition. And just a reminder that over time, your fleet starts to look a little bit bluer. Blue represents fuel cell. And so around 2025, we're looking at a delivery of 12 fuel cell buses, and then again upping the portion of fuel cell buses in the fleet over time after you kind of understand what you're working with for 3 years, increasing that in 2028, continuing to increase until you reach zero emission service completely with 68 fuel cell electric buses by 2034. This is well in advance of many peers and the regulation. A reminder that this timeline is just a guideline. You can advance and modify the purchasing as you need to, as buses retire. These are based on retirement schedules, but some unforeseen things can happen. Our joint procurements can also allow for some cost savings. So this timeline is not a mandate, but it really helps you understand based on your current vehicle service and the health and age of your fleet, when you can feasibly transition without retiring vehicles early. It's tied to a similarly modeled procurement timeline. I just walked through that. I won't spend too much time here, but this really is most important for allocating funding for each year that you're doing a large purchase of zero emission vehicles. Overall, the total annual costs are outlaid here, with the incremental cost of this scenario being only 53.9 million above the diesel hybrid baseline. If you were to continue to buy new diesel hybrid buses, you're only expending 53 million more in capital bus. I keep saying only, it's quite a bit, but it's not as much as when you break it down this way, and there is state and federal funding available. And then the other big thing is this $8 million figure, 7.9, which is the cost of a station build that can service your entire fleet into the future. Okay, so those items will be included in the, or are included in the Innovative Clean Transit Rollout Plan. So you should have a copy of that with, CARB does ask for you to be responsive to the procurement timelines, the composition, the full transition period, and the cost expectations that you have. In addition to these scenario overviews, there are also a few other keys. We covered the zero emission technology approach in the bus procurement schedule. We also describe facilities and infrastructure modifications, disadvantaged community service, workforce training, funding opportunities, and challenges and mitigation efforts. So I went over the first 3 or so. I won't cover challenges and mitigation efforts. Those really get into the details of implementation, and that's covered in the plan. But just high level, there is an environmental justice component. So the great news is that you can provide zero emission service to SB 535. That is a Cal and Virus-Green disadvantaged community. That's a group that is more likely to be impacted by poor air quality. So they will be receiving Wheels zero emission service by 2034, which is a huge plus. That's served by routes 10 and 14. You also always want to bring your workforce up and create jobs in the community, as well as educate groups so that they can move into this technology future with stable income and happy employment. And so there is a training and workforce development component of the plan that addresses collaboration with the West Coast Center of Excellence at Sunline, who's been operating fuel cell buses for many years, as well as AC Transit, who has a legacy fleet. Additionally, both classroom and practical training can be offered by the OEM, so the original equipment manufacturer will support you in your purchases on how to handle the new buses, as well as other trainings that you can supply that are from the community that you typically supply for training and workforce development. So we have in the past showed you an exhaustive list of funding opportunities to make this happen. Today, I wanted to focus on the very real ones that are at the doorstep at the moment, and that's the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Programs funding, which you all applied for. There's 500 to 600 million available, which can, if awarded, fuel the H2 fueling station and a maintenance facility upgrades. Remember that maintenance facilities have to be upgraded to have hydrogen gas detection. That's an added incremental cost to construction. Currently out on the street is bus and bus facilities and low or no emission funding. There is 3.7 million available for bus and bus and 1.1 available for low no. And we're actually, these subheaders are not quite correct. Tone and Michael can correct me per our last meeting, but bus and bus facilities, there's a plan to include the maintenance facility funding and the other operational buildings for the bus and bus application, and the low no will include the buses and the hydrogen fueling station. So apologies for that, I'll correct it and send it back out. But really just the point of this one is to say that your transition is at your doorstep. There's so much funds available. And if you pursue the opportunities, the chances are that you can make way there very soon. So just a positive note on the zero emission transition that yes, it is expensive, but there are opportunities more than ever to get there. So that's the overview of your ICT and what is on deck for approval today. Any questions?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Director Bonanno, let's start off with you.
Yeah, just a real quick one. Thank you for that report. Very, very good. Great to see this moving ahead. It's a question that's just a little bit off axis, but I'm curious about, I know in the past when we've bought new buses, which we've talked about quite a while ago now, at the beginning of maybe when I started serving, and where the buses that are being replaced go, and that there was sort of a market for those. So is there are we being discouraged from putting our buses that these zero emission buses are going to be replacing? Are we being discouraged or incentivized to take them out of service or not to keep them on the road? I mean, is there anything about that? It's more really a question of curiosity in terms of, do we treat these buses that are coming out of service any differently than we have in the past?
So I guess I'll answer that. The buses have to come out of service. One, because the FTA requires us to have a spare ratio of 20% or less, although that's supposed to be going up. And we tend to sell them, but the selling them issue, if we receive $5,000 or more for the vehicle, we have to return the FTA portion, which is normally between 77 and 83% to the FTA. And if we receive less than 5,000 for one of the vehicles, which happens, it's so weird how they don't all sell for the same price. We get to keep that money. We just have to use it for something transit related, which is easy because that's kind of what we do. And in terms of returning the money, we don't actually write a check. It comes out of our next grant application. So if we were going to get $100,000 in the next application and we had 5,000 for the bus, we'd only get 95,000, and then we'd supplant that project with the 5,000. So that's what we do.
Okay, I guess my question was more: are we being encouraged to take these out of service entirely and not sell them, so that we don't keep putting conventionally fueled vehicles back on the road, since we're trying to replace them?
You would think, you would think that you would want those, especially like the older ones we used to have that were all diesel, that you wouldn't want those still on the road. But because of the FTA rule, no, we have to try to obtain as much money for them as we can.
I see. So there's an incentive to keep putting them back on the road. I just wondered if the state had tried to turn that around now that we're going this direction. That's all I had. Thank you again for the report, and thank you, Tamara, for that answer. It's I guess just the way we're going to keep doing business. Thanks very much.
Anyone else before I ask questions? I don't see any other hands. I do really appreciate this report, and I know that we've asked a ton of questions on this this issue already. My only question is, I appreciate letting us know how much grant funding is available for some of these programs, but and maybe I've just missed it somehow, but how much funding have we requested? Obviously, we're not requesting $500 million on the TIRSIP, for example. Even that's what's available. How much are we trying to cover the entire $159 million in grant funding, or how much for each of these grant pieces? How much have we requested from each of them?
So with the TIRSIP grant, we requested money for the maintenance facility at Atlantis, which would then be equipped with what's needed to maintain the hydrogen buses. Okay. And we also asked for the hydrogen fueling facility itself. So I believe, Tone, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was right around $30 million for those two items. And we'll also request those same two items in the upcoming LONO and bus facility grant, actually for the bus facility grant. And then we'll apply for the GAP funding to go from the funding that's available at MTC to the funding that's actually needed for the 12 hydrogen buses. So we're still, I think, calculating that dollar amount, but for the 12 buses, I think the back of the napkin is about $3.5 million in GAP money.
Okay. But we're hoping to get the entire facility itself covered. So the 8 million that would be in addition to what we would need if we were doing battery electric buses, we're expecting that we'll be able to get grant funding to cover that piece.
Yeah, that's correct. The maintenance facility itself, I think, was 22 million, and the fueling facility was 10, and then the GAP money for the buses. So
perfect. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions? Okay, and you need a recommendation from us to move this to the full board. Do I have a motion to that effect? Do we need an actual motion? We need a motion, correct?
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Halbert, second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Bonanno.
Aye.
Pleasanton alternate Narum.
Aye.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chair Josie,
Aye.
motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, staff and consultants, for all of the wonderful work on this item. I'm very excited for us to have these fuel cell buses. Okay, we're moving on to item number 6, which is the Las Positas College Memorandum of Understanding.
Dean, I just wanted you to know that there were no attendees still, just have it on record.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll go on to Las Positas. A little background on this. In 2017, the student body at Las Positas voted 90% to 10% to impose a student mobility fee in order to get unlimited access transit passes on wheels buses for all students. And following that, in 2018, we executed a memorandum of understanding for 2 years for 2018-19 school year and 19-20. We had to renew that MOU in 2020 for 2 more years, and we're back again this year with the third version of the MOU to continue the student transit pass program at Las Positas. And if approved by our board, it will go to the Las Positas, Chabot Las Positas Community College District Board in mid-April.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, I'll take a motion to recommend this to the full body.
So moved, Halbert.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Narum seconds. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please? I
Yeah,
still see no
Vice Chair.
public comment.
Correct, there's nobody here and as an attendee. Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Pleasanton alternate Narum,
Aye.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chair Josie,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Item number 7, 2022 Title VI program.
That's me as well. Just
Thanks,
to let you
Tony.
know, I do things besides dedicate roads to car hops and wrap buses with football coaches. I have 3 items in a row here just to demonstrate my the breadth of my ability. So the Title VI report is something that's due to the Federal Transit Administration once every 3 years. We last did a Title VI report in 2019. And the Title VI of the Civil Rights Acts requires that we not discriminate in the provision of our service on the basis of race, color, or national origin. So there's a number of items that you must certify that you are continuing to do. And included on those are you have to notify the public of their protections under this Title VI. You have to have a complaint procedure in place. You have to demonstrate what that is to the FDA. You have to report any complaints you've had since your last report. We've had none. You have to report any service and fare changes that would have triggered a public hearing process under the Title VI rules. The only one that we had during the last 3 years was as a result of the service reductions that came about with COVID. Because those extended past 180 days, we were required to have a public input process by the board adopted policy. We did that, and so we reported on that. And our Title VI compliance was also reviewed last year during our triennial review, which is another every three-year process where FDA comes in and inspects a whole number of components of compliance, but Title VI being one of those. So this is the update to the 2019 plan, and we're looking for board adoption of this to submit it to FDA.
Sorry, I keep muting myself. Do I have any questions? Okay, and there's still no members of the public for public comment. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
So moved, Halbert.
Okay, I'm going to take second for Halbert because I heard Bonanno first. So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Pleasanton alternate Narum,
Aye.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, and Tony, on to number 8, bus exterior advertising contract.
You got it. So our current contract is with Lamar Transit Advertising. It's a 5-year contract. The contract expires on June 30th of this year. And so we released a request for proposals in January. Proposals were due in February. And the last time when we did this, we only got a single proposal, and that was from Lamar. This time around, we actually had 3 proposals. One from Lamar, one from Vector Advertising, Vector Media, and one from Rethought Reborn Media. And so we evaluated the 3 proposals that came in. Vector Media is kind of a national outfit similar to Lamar in that they're in a lot of cities, including County Connection now, Tri-Delta Transit, San Francisco Muni, West Cat. So they have quite a few, not just in California, but nationwide. Lamar is probably on par or very similar in size to Vector. They're national as well. And they have AC Transit, and they have Stockton in this area. And so, everybody kind of qualified as far, or let me go back to Rethought Reborn. Smaller organization. They specialize mostly in small transit agencies in the Central Valley, Porterville, I want to say Tulare, or Turlock maybe, but nothing on the magnitude of what we operate. So when we went through, we had a number of criteria that we evaluated each of these proposals on, and 40% of the score was based on revenue, because that's kind of what they're in the business of doing, is generating revenue for us. And Lamar came in with a revenue proposal that was far above the other 2 proposers. Their first 3-year proposal was $555,000 versus $240,000 for Rethought Reborn and $225,000 for Vector. And for that reason, their proposal scored way higher than the other 2. So that's the recommendation, is to go and continue with Lamar for the initial 3-year contract.
Okay, thank you. Do I have questions? I have a question. How does that revenue proposal compare to Lamar's current contract?
Well, the current contract at the start of the contract was $75,000 minimum guarantee per year, or 50% of net sales. So the way I always look at it is, we get the first 75,000, they get the next 75,000, and then we split 50-50, everything above $150,000. So with this one, they are starting out at 180 is their new proposal for the minimum guarantee, which is considerably higher, and 57% of gross revenue, of gross advertising sales. So it's better on both ends. And but the last 2 years of our contract, because of COVID, almost every transit agency that I'm aware of has given their advertising sales company relief from what they call the MAG, the minimum annual guarantee. And they've all gone to just a percentage of net sales. And so we did that with Lamar for the 2021 year and for the current year. We are on just a 50% of net sales. But their sales right now are on par with, they're going to exceed the minimum guarantee anyway, because advertising has actually picked back up for them. We get a monthly report, and things are looking very good for this year. So, so that's how it compares, I guess, to the current contract.
Okay, so we don't anticipate having to give them any relief at all, and we anticipate our revenue actually meeting this new minimum guarantee?
I had a conference call with not just the local manager, but the national sales manager for Lamar. And I said to both of them, are you sure about this amount you put? You didn't have a typo in here, right? This is your actual proposal. You didn't put an extra 1 in here by mistake. And they said, no, that's our proposal. And I said, well, I can tell you one thing. I will not be going back to our board of directors with any relief from MAG recommendation during the term of this contract. So you better be sure of yourself. And they said they wanted to hold on to our contract. They had in recent years lost County Connection in 2019. And I believe they may have lost either WestCat or Tri-Delta recently as well. They didn't want to lose our contract. They lost a County Connection contract, apparently because there was a very high minimum guarantee from Vector, which they then almost immediately turned around and asked for relief from because of COVID.
Okay. Director Banana?
I'm just curious, how does the number of buses that we're running, I mean, what are, hopefully this question makes sense. I mean,
Yes.
the amount of advertising they get is dependent on the number of buses we run and the number of routes we run. Is there anything in the contract that says we have to run a certain number of buses if we were to want to take down routes because we didn't have drivers or riderships, whatever, or scale up routes? How does it scale with that, if at all? Thank you. It
scales with the number of buses in your fleet that are available for advertisements. They have the ability to sell all buses in our fleet, with the exception of a couple of buses. We have a couple that we reserve. There's one that's called the Freedom Bus that looks like an American flag on the side, and then the bus that we used for the Madden Cruiser are two that they don't have access to, but they have access to all the other buses. And so they sell advertising on those buses, and they know what our current level of service is, and they know what our current fleet is, and we rotate those buses in and out of service. So I believe typically there will be an escalator clause if the number of buses in your fleet goes up or down by more than 10%.
Got it. Okay, so there's something in there if it changes beyond a small amount. Great, thank you.
Hey, any other questions? And still no members of the public in attendance. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Halbert.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Pleasanton alternate Narum,
Aye.
Director Halbert. Director
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. We are moving on to our executive director's report.
I'll let Michael handle this one.
All right, well, it's good to be here today. You've got your report in front of you. I won't go over all of the items in the report just for time purposes, but I'll hit some highlights. I think the most important is your ridership and where your ridership is going. We're still just under that halfway point in regard to ridership and pre-pandemic levels. But it is trending in the right direction ever so slightly. As you saw, there's about a 3% bump in ridership between what we're seeing, or what we saw in February, and what we're seeing in March. So we're continuing to behind the scenes make sure everything's safe on the system, that we've got all those safeguards in place, and then we're also working really hard to obtain additional operators so that we can increase service and eventually get back to that pre-COVID level. Just a couple of sound bites in regard to that. We're working behind the scenes on the operator wages. I think I've had a chance to touch base with most of you about the challenges that we're having with operator wages and hiring employees. So at your April board meeting, just a week away, we'll propose and provide a recommendation on operator wages to get those back to a level that's competitive. And so you'll have that for some consideration. I think there were a couple of other things on my mind in regard to operators and hiring. I think we're just gearing up to be really aggressive once we get that adjustment in the wages in place to be able to onboard as many operators as we can and get them trained. In regard to Atlantis, you'll recall that, and we're still on track with Kimley Horn coming to the board in April and giving an update on where we're at with 60% design. And that's really important to get to 60%. As you'll recall, it's a design build contract. So once it's at 60%, we can put it out on the street with bridging documents and get that project under construction if we're successful with the grant funding that we've been applying for. And the earliest that we would hear in regard to the grant funding, in regard to the maintenance facility and the hydrogen fueling station, for example, would be in June. So if all went really well, and there's a lot of money out there in that grant program, if all went well, we'd finish up the 60% design and the bridging documents within a month or two, within 60 days, and then receive word on funding and then be able to keep moving. So that's coming along. Also, you know, another key date in April is April 6th. And that's the date that we'll receive the proposals for operating your paratransit service, that joint project that we have with County Connection. We're a little nervous as we get close to receiving those proposals with what's going on with gas prices and what's going on with operator shortages and increases in wages kind of being seen across the board in the industry. And that ties in very closely with the budget that we're preparing, which the F&A committee will start to see in April. They'll have a chance to review that budget. So long story short, we're working really hard behind the scenes on your operations and your capital budget that the F&A will be considering in April. Just a couple of other things. As you're aware, you approved last year your first public transportation agency safety plan, which was required by the FTA. It's a pretty strict format, and so there wasn't a lot of leeway in how that plan developed. It was really almost a plug and play plan. And we've received a lot of new requirements through the infrastructure bill that was approved back in DC. So we're updating that plan. We're also taking a look at our loss history and our goals as it relates to loss. And we'll bring that to you in the very near future for consideration of moving that goal, and also including the new standards that we've been asked to incorporate. I see Supervisor Halbert there. The county did a great job. They have met the deadline with the California Transportation Commission in awarding the design build contract for the Dublin parking garage. So that project will continue to move forward. And it's good to have McCarthy Construction on board. I think, I mentioned the budget, and
Thank God.
Yes, thank God, that is appropriate. I would hate to give $20 million back to the state.
It's a literal miracle.
I agree. Hey, last but not least, on the second page, which you have, also some kudos certainly going out to board member Jean Josie and board member Kick, who have worked really closely with a subcommittee at the Tri-Valley Transportation Council to include LAVTA in the upcoming expenditure plan for the developer fee that they have been working on. Long story short, we've kind of been left out of the expenditure plan as an agency, and our two board members were able to work with the other member on the subcommittee to put in to the expenditure plan a recommendation of $800,000 for LAVTA, so that as that Dublin Boulevard extension gets planned and constructed, we have the appropriate funds for the design of the bus stops, for the design of the intersections, for queue jumps, for example, to give the buses priority at those intersections. So that $800,000, hopefully that gets approved by the full TVTC board a little bit later in April. but that will provide an opportunity to leverage state and federal funding to bring into that project from a public transit perspective. So that was a huge accomplishment. So a lot of thanks to, again, to Board Member Josie and Board Member Kick. So that completes what I had as kind of the big things that are rolling along with LAVTA. There's a lot of other gears in motion, but I'll show those on another date, but would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, this is a quiet bunch today, unusually so. All right, thank you for your report, and we'll move on to item number 10, which is preview of upcoming P&S committee agenda items. Do you want to give us an update of anything that you've got coming for us in the next few months?
Well, it looks pretty thin as you look at it in your committee report. I think the big things that are upcoming that I'll make sure we get on to that calendar for the next meeting, obviously, is your paratransit service and the proposals that are received and the recommendations that are forthcoming for your new operator with the paratransit. And then I think that there'll be significant ramp up in regard to not only the Dublin parking garage now that a design builder's on board, but also your Atlantis and your maintenance facility. So I'll flesh out this calendar a little better for you for the next meeting.
Fantastic. Okay, any matters initiated by committee members? Okay, seeing none, then our next meeting is scheduled for April 25th. And with that, unless anybody has anything else they want to add, we will adjourn at 4:40. We will see you next time, folks. Thank you very much.